So, as you could hear, the meeting is being recorded. But first of all, welcome everyone to this ZEF colloquium. And today we have a presenter, Samson Katengeza, who is based in Malawi. He holds a diploma in a PhD diploma in economics from the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. And currently he is a director of research and outreach and also a senior lecturer in agricultural marketing and food security and rural livelihood at the Lilongwe University of Agriculture and Natural Resources in Malawi. So maybe to introduce a little bit of context, the paper that Samson is going to present today was produced within the framework of our collaboration between ZEF and PARI, and also AERC on the other hand. Samson was exactly awarded a funding within this project for this specific paper. So today he will present this research on uptake and impact of hermetic bags on food security and nutrition among smallholder farmers in Malawi. So Samson, the floor is yours. Please share your screen.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. And you are most welcome to this presentation, whereby I'll be talking about uptake and impact of hermetic bags on food security and nutritional security among the smallholder farmers in Malawi. It's a pleasure that you are all there. And I'm here to present the preliminary findings, if not the final findings. I hope after this meeting, there could be some other changes that I may need to undertake. So feel free to give critical comments for me to improve the paper. Yeah, so basically I will introduce the topic and then give some of the objectives, some definitions, the methods we have used, and then results before concluding and giving the recommendations. So, post-harvest losses is one of the leading causes of food insecurity and nutrition insecurity in this side of Africa. We all know that the food insecurity, together with the nutrition insecurity, are big problems in this part of Africa, and the post-harvest losses is one of the biggest causes of this. The post-harvest losses may occur either in the field or during the processing, and again also in the storage. It is estimated that about 1/3 of the food is lost or is wasted during the post-harvest period. And the estimates are indicating that maize, which is the main staple for the majority of the households, decreases by about 25 to 27% due to post-harvest losses. And as you can see, this figure is very big for a household to lose about 27% of his or her produce due to post-harvest losses. Now, most of these smallholder farmers, unfortunately, they are limited to accessing the methods of reducing post-harvest losses. As a result, most of them are trapped into what they call the sell low, buy high behavior. meaning that during the time these farmers are harvesting, they end up selling their commodities at a very low price because they are running away to avoid losses. So they just sell more or less, like giving away to avoid the losses that happen during the post-harvest. But then what happens is, during the lean period, they end up buying the very same commodities at a very high price. So they are trapped into that, meaning that yes, there is indeed a need for better technologies that can improve the post-harvest. So these smallholder farmers, they are unable to store the commodity because of increased post-harvest losses. And again, there are also unreliable financial markets that could bridge the period between harvest and the next harvest, so that the farmers can keep the commodity and maybe sell later when the price is relatively high. This means that if we reduce the post-harvest losses, it will allow the producers to keep the commodities for at least a long period of time in order to gain from the price increase, especially during the lean period. So it helps them to earn higher income and then also improve their food security and also improve the nutritional security. Now, this means that any agricultural policy that is designed to enhance sustainable crop productivity and production, but does not properly handle post-harvest reducing technologies, then that policy is not enough. So there is a need for policies to include the post-harvest reducing strategies. So for these reasons, there are several interventions that are underway in Malawi and other countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And some of these technologies include the storage chemicals, the metallic silos, and also the Purdue Improved Crop Storage bags, which are popularly known as PICS bags. So this is our focus for this study, whereby I wanted to understand the uptake on whether the farmers are adopting this technology. And for those that are adopting, what could be the impact on the household food security and the nutritional security. So the main objective of the study was to examine the uptake and impact of the technologies on household food security and nutritional security. Specifically, we assessed the determinants of adoption. Number two, examined the impact of the bags on household dietary diversity score, which is a proxy indicator for food security, and then the impact on infants and young children feeding practices. This was used as a proxy for nutrition security. Of course, it may not be for those in nutrition, it may not be a direct indicator, but because we're unable, due to data limitation, we're unable to get the direct indicator of nutrition security. That's why other circles, they recommended using the infant and young children feeding practices. So some definition on these terms. PICS bags, these are bags with triple layer consisting two separate high density polyethylene, and those two layers are surrounded by the woven polypropylene bag. And the household dietary diversity score, this is defined as the number of food groups consumed by household over a given reference period. And as I said, it is an indicator for food security. While the infant and young child feeding practices, these are defined as number of recommended infant and young children feeding practices. And some circles, they can use that as a proxy indicator for nutrition security. The higher the better, the more they use the better. So these are the indicators that we used to define the infant and young children feeding practices. So whether a child consumed 4 out of possible 7 food groups, whether children born in the last 24 hours, 24 months were put to the breast feeding within 1 hour of birth, okay? Or whether children 12 to 15 months of age were fed breast milk, okay? And then all those other indicators. So what we did was we asked these questions to the mothers, and wherever the mother was saying yes, then we could record it as 1, okay? Another one also says yes, we could also record as 1. So out of these, we checked how many did a mother or a child scored. So then we got an aggregating number as to how many of these a mother scored 1 or 0, and that's what gave us the nutritional security indicator. Now, coming to the methods, this data was collected from southern Malawi, specifically among the 3 districts. These are Chikwawa, Mulanje, and the Zomba. So what we did was there is a project running in these districts. This project basically is a nutrition improvement project. It's being spearheaded by CIP. Yeah, so we took advantage of that project to obtain data from the participating households, and also those are not participating to be used as a control group. So we sampled both project beneficiaries and beneficiaries using a simple random sampling technique. And at the end of the day, we got 363 households, whereby 164 were participants of the project and 195 were non-participants of the project. The reason why we focused on the project participants, we wanted also to see whether participation in such projects could also contribute to the adoption of these technologies, knowing that the technology is relatively new in Malawi and most countries. So those that are adopting, it's either they're being influenced by a given project running. So I wanted to find out whether participation in some of these projects, though not a direct project on PICS, but whether any project that is promoting nutrition and food security could have any effect on the adoption of the technology. That's why we opted to sample from these households. So after sampling, this is what we got. So in total, from Chikwawa, we managed to get 60 households, from Mulanje 149, from Zomba 154, to give a total number of 363. And out of that, we observed that only about 37 of the households were adopters of the PICS technology, representing only 10%. Yeah, about 10% as the adopters of the technology. Note that those that adopted only the PICS bags without other technologies were only 5%, but the 10% were also those that adopted other storage technology. So they adopt the PICS bags and other technologies like the storage chemicals or the traditional methods. So on aggregate, the adopters were about 10%. And the cross-tabulating with the participation in the project, we observed that those that participated in the project and also adopted the technology were about 7%, while those that did not participate in the project and adopted were about 3%. So this is just an indication that yes, participation could have an effect on the adoption of these technologies. Now, coming to the analytical methods that were used, the first objective on the adoption, I used that equation number 1, whereby y is an indication of PICS bags and is a dummy variable, whereby the x vectors of the determinants, including participation in the project and other socioeconomic attributes, institutional factors like distance, and the others. And to estimate the parameters in this equation, we use the probability model since the y variable there is a dummy variable. While for objective 2 and the objective 3, the equation 2 was used, whereby the y is either household data diversity score for objective 2, or the infant and young child feeding practices for equation 3. And the we used the Poisson regression model to estimate the parameters in equation 2. I should also mention that since adoption of PICS bags is endogenous in this equation, of course, we know there are several endogenous variables included, but then we were so interested in the PICS bags as an endogenous variable. So what we did was we used a control function estimator to control for the endogeneity of the PICS bags. So what we did was after running the probability model in the equation 1, and using an instrument that we identified, we computed the residuals that were used to control for the endogeneity. So the final equation 2 that we estimated, we included that residual as a control for endogeneity of the PICS bags. So the final results were from that final equation that included the residual for controlling for endogeneity of the PICS bags. So the results, first with the variables that we have used in this model. The first one is the PICS bags adoption. Then the second variable is the household data diversity, whereby we observed that about the households on average were consuming 4 different types of food groups. Now, in terms of the feeding practices, on average, the households managed to get 2.4 as an average from those indicators that I earlier presented. So on average, they got about 2.4. In terms of project participation, about 46% were participants. And again, we also scored them on the nutritional knowledge on how much do they know on the nutrition issues? So again, this one, we also asked them a number of questions, and then those that were scoring 1, I mean, that were saying yes, we could give them a 1. And on average, the households managed to score about 10. I think there were about 14 questions that we asked them, and about 10 indicated that they know about 10 indicators, which shows that at least the households had enough knowledge on nutrition. And again, we also had another important variable, which is the production diversity, as to how many crops are the households producing. So on average, the households are producing about 4 commodities, and the rest are the household socioeconomic characteristics, and also other institutional variables such as distance to farmer groups, distance to village markets, access to the radio, and the others. Now, the probed results on the objective 1, the determinants of adoption of Hermetic PICS bags among smallholder farmers in Malawi. I should mention that we here I'm only presenting those that are significant, but we included a lot, as I showed on the variable definition. So from that table, we can see that yes, participation in a project could enhance adoption of the technology. This could be maybe because the households are taught of the needs for the nutrition, and then they are motivated to adopt any technology that will enhance the nutritional status of their households. So this could be a proxy that in any project that is motivating the smallholder farmers to enhance on the nutrition could indirectly also enhance the adoption of any strategy that will help them to improve on nutritional security. And the other variable, distance to farmer group, we used this one as an instrument. We assumed that it could affect the purchase of the PICS bags, but may not directly affect other nutrition or food security indicators. And the second objective on the impacts on the food security using the household data diversity score as an indicator. These were the results that we got. The residual variable was negative and significant. This could be an indication that yes, the control function approach that we used was an appropriate approach. So for the main variable, the use of the PICS bags, we noted that it is positive and significant. Now, this could be an indication or could suggest that yes, if households are adopting the PICS bags technologies, they could have an impact or a positive effect on household food security. Then the final objective on the impacts on the nutritional security using infants and young children feeding practices. These were the results. Again, the residue here is also significant, and the use of the PICS vaccine is also significant and the positive, which again suggests that there could be a positive effect of PICS vaccine on the nutrition security. You could see from my explanations that I'm a bit skeptical to conclusively say that using the PICS bags has a positive and significant impact, simply because as we observed that adoption is very, very low, about 10%. It is very difficult to make a conclusive statement from that low adoption. Yes, this has a significant impact, but potentially it shows that yes, it could adopt fully these technologies. They could improve on both food security and nutrition security. So in conclusion, I'd say that participation in a nutrition-related project or other projects that could enhance nutrition and food security has potential to improve or to enhance adoption of PICS vaccine in Malawi and also other countries. Adoption of the PICS vaccine has a significant impact on household data diversity score, and potentially this could mean that this vaccine have a positive impact on household food security. And finally, adoption of these technologies potentially could also influence nutrition security. So the take-home message from this study, number one, there is a need for deliberate efforts through targeted projects to enhance adoption of the PICS vaccine in Malawi. So I'm saying there is currently the government is running a large-scale affordable input program that is enhancing access to agricultural inputs. This program has replaced the former farm input subsidy program. So I'm saying, even though I did not directly measure the effect of this, but from the results that I am getting, I could recommend that if the government could deliberately include PICS bags in the AIP as a project or as a pilot project, it could enhance adoption of these technologies, because we have evidence that a project has potential to improve adoption of the technologies. And finally, I recommend that the policies and strategies that are aimed at addressing food security and nutritional security should also deliberately include post-harvest loss reducing technologies such as PICS bags. Yeah, so basically that's what I had, or that's what I found out from this project. Thank you so much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samson, for your presentation. I think definitely and unfortunately the question of post-harvest losses is still very relevant to study. Now we can open the floor for the discussion. So if you have any questions or comments, you can either raise your hand or you can use the chat function, and then I will read out your question. So I see we already have a couple of hands raised and also a comment in the chat. So let me start. Abdul Rashid, please.
Hello, Samson, Dr. Samson, such a great presentation, and thank you for sharing your work with us. I just have a few comments and I'd like to hear your opinion about that and how it relates to your research. So the first one, I think for me, when we talk about adopting this storage technology, one major determinant is liquidity constraints, right? So people are unable to set their crops and sell later because they have like pressing demands on their resources, and without access to credit, then they have to sell those crops, even if later it means they have to buy it at higher prices. So one major determinant of the storage then is access to credit, right? If you have no access to credit, then you must sell the crops, and that means you cannot buy the technology to store it. And I don't think you have maybe looked at maybe access to credit, as one determinant of the adoption. Maybe I missed it, so I'd like to hear about that. And another thing is also like farmers' risk preference, right? So risk-averse farmers are more likely maybe to, depending on their utility function, whether to adopt this technology or not. So I think one thing maybe that will be important is to maybe even elicit risk preference using like choice experiment or other methods, and see how that relates to the adoption of the technology. But I'm not sure if you have looked at that. And also, I'm not sure if I'm right here, but also the number of people who have the bags seems to be really, really low compared to the non-adopters. So wouldn't that kind of also affect the results? Because in some districts, I see less than 10% of the people have adopted the bags, right? So yeah, I want to hear your opinions on that. But yeah, this is really nice research and it's very interesting for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Abdul Rashid. Since there was like a lot of questions there, Samson, maybe you would like to answer them, or at least some of them directly now.
Thank you so much for those important questions. Yes, I would agree on the first one on the liquidity issues. That is why I think during the introduction I also mentioned it that yes, because the farmers have pressing need of the income. That's why they end up selling early in the season, and they need it for these technologies. So your suggestion, yes, I agree that there could be a need of including credit access in the model. I think that variable, I should have it in the data, but I did not include it. I only included income variable, which of course was not significant. That's why I did not present it. But I did include the income variable. But then I agree with you that including credit access could also improve our results. So I will include it since I have that variable in the data. On farmers' risk averseness, yes, yeah, I also agree with you. However, I may not be able to include that variable because data was already collected and we did not include that variable when collecting the data. So I may not be able to work on that. For the final one, I also agree that yes, the adoption was very, very low. That's why I also say that I'm a bit skeptical to make a conclusive conclusion because of the low adoption. And from also other studies within the country, I've also observed that since it's indeed a new technology, the adoption is very, very low in most of the areas, unless maybe it is an area where there is a specific project that is promoting adoption of these, and the farmers are just being given, not them buying for themselves, but they're just being given. Only in those areas can we find a high adoption. But probably with some of the recommendations we are making, we could see an improvement in the adoption rates in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Samson. Let me now read out the comment posted by Alisher Mirzabayev in our chat. Thank you for the presentation. Do you have any comparison between how much one bag will cost and how much harvest loss value it will help avoid? So for example, cost benefit type of analysis.
Yeah, maybe just come again there.
Okay, do you have any comparison between how much one bag will cost and how much harvest loss value it will help avoid? So are you able to provide a kind of a cost benefit analysis for bags adoption?
No, I think that could be interesting, yes, to do. Unfortunately, that would have meant us to measure the quantity of loss and then do that kind of comparative analysis. Unfortunately, with the time that we had and also the resources that we had, we could not do that. Of course, I remember in one of the proposals I proposed to do that, but then the resources were not enough. Of course, to obtain that loss, it's a longitudinal data that you have to measure on different times to see how much the farmers are losing from one harvest to another harvest. But that should be another research question for future. Thank you.
Okay, and I see that Rodolfo has a question. So Rodolfo, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just I have one doubt. Well, first of all, thank you for the presentation, but I have a doubt about the variables in the infant feeding practices and the relationship that you find with the adoption of the PICS bags. The thing is that, as I understand, some of the variables included in the score are retrospective, right? So it might be some time mismatch, to put it on some way, between the PICS bags adoption and the feeding practices. So, for instance, it could happen that the adoption of the PICS bags just happened a week ago, but you are asking feeding practices for 1 year ago. So the relationship that you are finding is actually not there. It's pretty much, could be pretty much spurious. So I don't know if you have considered that in the way you ask the questions about the feeding practices and the adoption.
Thank you, Rodolfo. Samson, would you like to respond to this comment?
Yes, yes, I can agree with you. So what we did to take care of that was to time the period we corrected the, because normally in Malawi harvesting takes place around April or May, and in the area we went for data correction. Harvesting normally takes place in April. So the assumption was after harvesting in April, then most of them could adopt the technology probably around May, so that they managed to keep most of the commodities. And the data was corrected around December. So we thought we gave enough period from May, the time they are adopting, and May, where we went to ask those kind of questions. So yeah, you could be right, but partly I think we controlled by timing the period of data collection. Thank you.
Thank you, Samson. Thank you, Rodolfo. Are there any other comments? Martin, Paul, please.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Samson, and yeah, very good presentation, like the others have said. I just have some worries. So probably you actually mentioned them in your presentation, but I missed them. So the first issue was what you already answered, and that was what someone also spoke of, kind of the controls we are looking at, because kind of I missed out on your income control, but you said you didn't indicate that because it wasn't significant. But also, I think in most of these rural areas, kind of your assets also matter. So I also missed out on an asset control. But of course, like we know, when it comes to adoption and new technologies like this PICS back, kind of your kinship also matters, right? Kind of your ethnicity. I also missed out on source controls. Maybe as a proposer, you may want to just look at that if you don't want to answer that now. But more importantly, I'm a little bit worried, or are you not worried about the heterogeneity of the program participation, given that you're looking at adoption of PIC packs and you're looking at the impact of an earlier program. So you didn't mention how you control them for that program participation. Are you not sure that is kind of biasing your results in a way? I'd want to hear you say something about that. But also when it comes now to your impact of adoption on food security, I have two issues there. So when it comes to these proxies for nutrition security, like the child feeding practices, I noticed that your sample size reduces. Like, I'm not sure exactly why that happened, because I noticed it kind of reduced from like 300 households to just 149. Probably you explained, but I missed that. But also, like you mentioned, that you used the control function to kind of control for the endogeneity of the adoption variable, right? But if I understand the control variable, the control function approach, kind of, it's very similar to the IV kind of estimator, and you specify instrumental variables. But I missed out completely on the discussion of the instrumental variables you use. Or did you just assume the linearity of the probing model as kind of for their identification? So I want to get your comments on all of this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin Paul. Samson?
Okay, yes, thank you for those comprehensive comments. I think most of them are comments that I may need to consider when revising the analysis. Regarding the issue of asset control, I did not control for assets, but I think I have that variable in the data. So that would be a bit easy. I'll just fish it out and then include and see how the results changes. Now, you rightly observe that the sample size is reducing from adoption model to food security model, and also to the nutrition model. What I noted was that between the households that participated in the nutrition project and those that did not participate in the project, there were some households that did not report on the household dietary diversity score. Mainly it was those households that were participating in the project that reported this value. So we had those missing values in the nutrition and the nutrition indicator itself and the food security indicator. That's why the sample was reducing. Of course, there could be a problem there because there was more like a systematic reduction of the sample size as opposed to the random reduction. And that was also one reason why we proposed it to bring in the control function approach to try also to control for that systematic reduction of the sample that could bring in the endogeneity. Now, on the CFA approach, the identification strategy that we used, I used the instrumental variable, which I mentioned was the distance to the farmer club center. The assumption was I avoided using participation itself in the farmer club because I knew it could also be endogenous on its own. But I used the distance because the distance could be external, but the choice itself could be endogenous. So the assumption was the distance could influence whether one purchases the PICS bags or not, but may not directly affect the nutrition or the food security itself. Of course, I know it's so subjective and debatable. I know these instrumental variable approaches that are so challenging, especially to identify the appropriate instrument. It becomes very difficult because it requires several assumptions and also several analytical methods to be used. But for the data that we have, that's the best that I could do. But since the analysis is still ongoing before I submit the final report, I'll still see how best I can control for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Burgemeister.
Thank you, Zamita. Thank you, Samson, for an interesting presentation. Really very interesting. Got one question, one comment. You know that there is a wealth of data on PICS use and PICS adoption from West Africa. That's basically where this whole process started. So we're interested to know how your results compare with the ones recorded earlier in West Africa. And the second point is you mentioned losses and you regretted not having taken actual losses or recorded actual losses among farmers. A couple of years ago, I did a fairly detailed meta-analysis about maize post-harvest losses in sub-Saharan Africa. And if I recall correctly, the data from Malawi was quite rich. So I don't think that you need to reinvent the wheel. There should be quite a lot of available data sets on maize storage losses in Malawi. And if you don't get them from Malawi, you got them from Zambia, which should be very comparable. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Samson, would you like to respond to these comments?
Yes, thank you so much, Prophet. Thank you for enlightening me that there is that a lot of data, and I think, yes, I can take it from there to get that data and make the comparative analysis as someone suggested. So yes, I take that comment, and I think I should be able to estimate that and see how the results will come out. Now, in terms of the comparison with the West Africa, yes, you are right. Even in my literature review indicated that yes, there's a lot of studies that have been done in West Africa. So I should be able to make that comparison when we finally discussing my results in the report. But roughly, I could say that they are comparable. There are a number of studies in West Africa that have also reported a positive and significant impact of the PICS vaccine on nutrition. I mean, on the food security and also partly on nutrition security. The good thing is those in West Africa that have even done some randomized control trials experiments. So their results are even more accurate than my results that are only based on survey data. But the outcome of it, they're more or less similar. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments, or remaining suggestions to Samson? If not, maybe one comment from me, and I think I would like to really come back to what Martin Paul was saying already with respect to participation in these projects, nutrition improvement projects, because I think it would be really helpful if you gave a better description or explanation with respect to these projects, what kind of interventions they really imply, and whether farmers participate in these projects based on their own decision. So is it like, again, this self-selection problem, or are these kind of randomized interventions or not? I think it could really affect your results, and also probably the interventions within those projects could contaminate the end results with respect to the impacts of what you are saying, the use of PICS back on dietary diversity and also on these infant scores. Maybe it's just indirect impact or of participation in the project itself and learning about the nutrition, and not so much just the impact of bags. So I think it would be really helpful if you explain maybe in more detail the question of these nutrition related projects.
Okay. No, thank you so much for that comment. I think, yes, I'll need to give a better explanation to that project. And yes, there are likely to be heterogeneity issues that I did not control in the analysis. So I could also try to see how best I can control for that heterogeneity with respect to the participation in the project. I should mention that the initial sampling for the participants was random, that they were randomly chosen to participate in the project, the initial participants. But then after others started seeing the benefits of the project, some people, by their own choice, started joining the project. So there are a number of interventions that they are doing, but largely it's mainly nutritional education. They also teaching them on the strategies that could help them improve on the nutritional status of their children or of their households. So basically, it's teaching, training that they are doing. So it's not directly related to the PICS bags, but those technologies are coming in because they are given just as examples that for you to improve, you may need this type of strategies. So they are just being taught in passing as part of them. But still, we may need to see, because on its own, it can also affect the nutrition and also can affect the food security. So I'll see again in the analysis how best I can control for the heterogeneity of participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I think we can close this session for today. So thank you very much again, Samson, for your presentation. I think we all enjoyed the presentation and the discussion as well. And thank you all participants for your participation. Remember that next week we don't have ZEF colloquium as such, because there will be a ZEF gender workshop taking place at the same time. So please join the gender workshop, and ZEF colloquium will come back in 2 weeks. Thank you very much, and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.